Hey everyone, welcome to another video. As you can see, I'm in my garden. It is only a few days left of winter in 2020, and on the 18th of December this year, it'll be 3 years since I've moved into my house. So in that time, I've been working my butt out, completing my garden of fruit forest front yard and a vegetable garden in the backyard. So I'd like to just give you a look around and explain what I've done. So let's go for a walk. So the first plant I want to talk about are these feijoas here, that one and that one. They were one of the first plants I planted in. When I first moved into the house, it was a very typical English front garden. Your roses everywhere, lots of pebbles down the front yard, the front of the front yard. And there was, I think, 3 or 4 plants here, just a basic evergreen shrub. So the first one I wanted to plant were these 2 feijoas because they take about 5 years before they start fruiting. So this one's about 2.5 years old now. So I shouldn't be too much longer until I get fruit out of it. They grow to about 4 meters tall and 2 meters round, but I'll be pruning it back to a small shrub because of all the other plants that I've planted so close to it. Coming this way, after I planted these 2 feijoas, I put these 2 apple trees in. So these ones will grow to about 6 meters tall, and the northern aspect is that way. So these will be shading just the grass on the ground in front of me and the cars behind me, in front of me. So the biggest ones you plant at the back of a property, and then the smallest ones you plant at the front, so they all get equal amounts of sun. These apples are great. I've never really dealt with apples before, but in the first year I got probably 6 or 7 just perfect apples out of them. So this one is a Royal Gala, and this one over here is a Pink Lady. So I've got the stalks on at the moment, just trying to open up the shape of this tree and the structure, because you want to prune it in a wine glass shape so airflow gets through the middle and you get high yields of apples. So coming this way, these small little shrubs over here, these 2 here, this one and this sticky looking one, they're all cherry guavas. So just a small grape-sized guava, and if you come up close, you can see some flower buds starting to come through just here. So in a few weeks' time, they'll start to flower. In this shrub here, I got probably 700 grams of fruit off it, and it was only the size of one of these last year. So with all 4 of them in, I should be getting about hopefully 2 kilos of fruit, and those fruit are perfect to jam. So they, when you cook them up, they turn into a jam really well. They turn into a nice consistency. So this one and this one here are yellow cherry guavas. This was one of the first ones I put in along with the feijoas. They taste sort of like a marmalade when you cook them up. And these 2 here, they're red cherry guavas or a strawberry cherry guava. So that's supposed to taste like a strawberry jam, but I'm yet to get fruit off them because I only put them in a few months ago. Onto the middle of the garden. This is my dwarf mulberry tree, which is hardly a dwarf anymore. A normal mulberry tree will grow to at least 20 meters, like it is a full-size tree, just like an avocado. As you can see, I don't have enough room for that, but I still do like a mulberry, so even if I can just pick a few off as they ripen, I'll still be happy with it. But these are the most resilient plant. You cannot kill them. I've transplanted it between 2 pots and then into this garden here, and within a few weeks of planting it in the garden, it was already a foot taller and like starting to sprout. Coming down the hill, as you can see, if you get up close on this one again, some new leaves coming through. This one is a pomegranate. So this was one of the first ones I put in, along with the feijoas and the apples. Apparently they only fruit for 7 years, but I'm yet to get fruit off it. So I'll just see how it goes. I thought it had died a few times, but it seems to be hanging on. So each of these plants I've planted a very strategic distance from each other, to at a distance that I can prune them and get maximum yield but not let them get too large. So each of them is about 2.5 or 2.2 meters from each other, and I've strategically laid each of them out. So I've got 3 rows of trees and they're about 2.2 apart. So over here, can't quite remember, that's why I leave a tag on it. This is a Mariposa Plum. So I'm yet to get fruit off it as well, because I've only just planted it. It's still in dormancy through winter, but you can see evidence of new growth starting to come through. This one over here is another plum. It is a Satsuma Plum. So these I've planted a little bit closer together, because when they both flower at the same time, they need cross-pollination. So I want the branches to be just crossing, so the bees don't have to go as far. So a bee will go from one flower to another, and it's already gone from one tree to another. So that should provide a maximum yield for that plant. Over here, I have a apricot. I keep forgetting that one. And it's just started to flower the other day. Just started to come out of dormancy. New growth poking through. So these drop fruit all at once. So I'm hoping to just use this as another tree that I use for jam. But if I can get apricots off it for a few days, then I will. But yeah, my main goal is to make jam out of apricots. Over here, I have a peach, a tropical snow peach, and that's been flowering for a while now. I've seen bees foraging around it, pollinating the flowers, but I have been hand pollinating. So what you do is you just get your finger, tickle the flower, and then tickle another one, and then tickle another one, and that spreads the pollen over all of them and hand pollinates it. So if the bees don't actually come, then you know you've got fruit. Out front here, this one is a pear tree. It is a Williams Bartlett pear. It's still in dormancy. They grow to about the same size as the apple tree, but I will be pruning it to maximum yield. Down here, I've got a Jujube, or a Jujube, Jujube. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's dead, I'm not sure, but I'll see when it comes out of dormancy if it's still alive. If it's not alive, it's unfortunate, and I'll probably end up just putting more cherry guavas in, because they're delicious and they provide lots of fruit. The best value for money is cherry guava. In summer, when they're coming into fruit, they look absolutely amazing with all the flowers, and yeah, you can plant them close together. They're not too big, they'll only grow to about 2 meters tall, and it is the best value for money. So I highly recommend them if you don't have much room to plant. This is another pear tree that I've planted close to the Williams Bartlett. It is a Nashi pear. So these ones have to cross-pollinate just like the plums, and I'll hopefully train the branches to be close to each other as well. Moving on down here, I have a Nectarine. It is a Sunracer Nectarine. So that's just come into flower, as you can see. I've been hand pollinating it as well. So I'm pretty keen on getting some nectarines and peaches this coming summer. Over here at the front, this one here is one of the trees that I couldn't fit in because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 fruit trees. 26 fruit trees in the front yard. And unfortunately I've run out of room on my property. It's only a 500 square meter lot and the house takes up about a quarter of it, so there's not that much room to work with, but yeah, hopefully I can give this away because apparently this is a delicious fruit. But I was skeptical on putting it into the ground because I've heard people say that lychees are delicious, but I'm not quite a fan of lychees, so I didn't want to put it in the ground in case it wasn't a bad fruit, wasn't a good fruit, and I ended up not liking it. So I've only planted fruit trees that I've tasted and I know that I like. So here we have an avocado. It's not doing the best, but hopefully when summer comes it'll start picking up again. So this one has to cross-pollinate, preferably. They do flower and fruit on their own, but they work best with cross-pollinators. So on the other side of the driveway I have another avocado. So this one will cross-pollinate with the one on the other side, and this one's a dwarf. So as you can see, there's not much room for it to grow. So it'll grow to about 3-4 meters tall and fill out this entire area. So you can train it to be like a rectangle. So over here again, I have a Navel Orange. So this is what inspired me to plant all these fruit trees, because my parents growing up had a Navel Orange tree. They would collect all the compost for the entire year and put it under the tree, and it would just soak up all that nutrients and produce the largest, like bigger than a softball, and most delicious oranges you could ever dream of. Compared to the shop, they are just unbelievable. So the orange tree is what got me started, so I had to plant the Navel Orange. And if you come up close, you can see just in here there's some new growth, and they're going to be flowers and fruit for hopefully next year. So coming down the front, in this little makeshift greenhouse, it's a little bit wet at the moment. So this is an achacha. It's a small fruit around about the size of a large grape, and it's orange on the outside. It's got a hard, not a nutty type shell, but it's a crisp shell that snaps off with a large seed and a whitey translucent texture fruit on the inside. And I would describe it as like a lemon sorbet taste. I bought them in the shops once in like a little packet just to try out, see what it was, and they were delicious, so instantly bought a plant, had to get one. They're a tropical plant, so they don't do the best in this climate, but if you keep it in a greenhouse throughout winter and you don't let it get any frost, we've had a few cold spells of 3 degrees in the morning lately, so keeping a bag over it just keeps it protected from the frost burn. Over the back here, you might have to jump this walkway that I'll talk about soon. This is a Davidson's plum. It is a native to Australia. It is another tropical fruit. It prefers the shade. As you can see, we're in a mostly shaded area because the northern aspect of the property is that way. So the unique thing about this fruit is they fruit on the bark of the tree. So down here, just off the bark, there's a nice little bit of new growth here. That'll become a flower and a piece of fruit, and the plum will just like hang off the bark basically. Another one similar to this is a South American fruit called a Jaboticaba, or Jaboticaba, and apparently they're delicious. I've heard these are just as equally as nice. So in the corner here, I've got a 1,000-litre water tank that I've plumbed off the roof. Just might need to step back there. So this 1,000-litre water tank I put in after the 5,000-litre water tank, which I'll explain later. I put the 5,000-litre water tank in, and then it came to summer and I ran out of water within about a month. When you're watering all these fruit trees and all the seedlings every single day, you chew through water like you wouldn't believe. So I basically went around to every corner of the house and figured out how's the best way to put a water tank in and what's the best way to capture as much water as possible. So this 1,000-litre tank is just plumbed off this single downpipe and then plumbed into that overflow down here, and it catches this corner and that corner of the house. So it's not a lot of surface area, but then again it's not a huge tank, so it's just the perfect amount of roof space to fill the tank up on a heavy downpour. So I'll explain this section here. So it does look like a dry riverbed. This is one of the original palms that was here and one of the original roses that I will keep. It does look like a dry riverbed, but when I first moved in I had some real bad drainage issues. So the front yard slopes down towards the house and I didn't want any of the water pooling at the front of the house and causing mold issues and stuff like that. So I had to lay an ag line this entire length and then plumb it into this pit here. And careful. And I've got a sump pump which pumps over into that overflow over there. So yeah, that's the best way. It's like a professional setup. It took me hours and hours and hours to dig and put in, but it works absolutely amazing, and the dry riverbed looks pretty nice. So over this side of the house, so this footpath here was one of the last things I've recently completed. I'll walk you down to the side of the house where the meter board and all the solar controller is. I'm yet to 100% complete this footpath because it's a little bit out yet, but I'll get around to it. The yard's 100% complete in the sense that I've set it up. I've just got to iron out all the tiny little details. So over here is our solar. We have 6 kilowatts on the roof. We are currently producing 1600 watts because the sun's not fully high enough yet. In the middle of winter, the sun does go behind a tree that's in our backyard. I'll show you later. So we don't get full solar production, but I didn't want to go cutting a tree down to just produce more solar. The idea is just to consume less energy. So we have a gas hot water that I will probably eventually convert to solar as well. But for now it's working. I don't want to chuck it out if it's working perfectly fine. So I think that's nearly the front yard. I'll just show you on the other side where I've built another retaining wall, and then we'll go into the backyard. So before I get to the retaining wall and this side of the garden, I'll just finish off with the plants that I did forget. So I've got here cha-cha and a Davidson's plum, and here I have a fig. They grow to roughly about 2 meters tall and 2 meters around. They're not the strongest plant, so I'll probably have to stake it up, but the edge of the plant should reach about the edge of a driveway, which I've strategically placed it in. So this one here is one of the original roses. It's a red rose. I don't know what they're called. It's red. It smells delicious. As you can see, there's new growth coming out in summer, and I've actually taken cuttings of this and reproduce from that. Yeah, I'll talk about this one. So this one is a Leptospermum Scoporium or Leptospermum Polygalaphorium. I'm not sure which one. They look very similar, but I got this plant from seed up at a national park, at Girikul National Park, just up the road from us. I grew it from seed. It's a native Australian plant. They're notoriously hard to grow from seed, so these plants are probably one of my prized possessions. They grow to about 2 meters tall again, more of a shrubby look, and they produce thousands of little white little flowers. I think it's called a lemon tea tree, similar to a manuka, like the manuka honey. Thousands of little white flowers that smell like, it's got a lemon fragrance to it, like a very refreshing fragrance. So when you walk down into the front of a house, you'll smell nothing but lemons. Oh, more like a, not lemons in the sense of acidity, but more of a refreshing, I don't know, it's just a refreshing fragrance. So we've got another native here and a kangaroo paw. It's just a bottle brush here. Yeah. So now I'll talk about the retaining wall and the plants on this side of the garden. So I built this white picket fence because every house has to have the American dream of a white picket fence. Why not? And in my opinion, it looks pretty nice. This one here is a mango. So this one will grow to another 20-meter tall tree. There's a guy around the corner who has one of these, and he's pruned it to a cube shape and about 4 meters tall, and it produces quite a lot of avocados. Quite a lot of mangoes every single year. So this one will take up about the space from the distance between the avocado and this macadamia over here, and all the way up to the fence and the driveway. So I'll try and grow it about 4 meters tall and then just keep it pruned. And there's a little ant in there just trying to pollinate. So this one is another native, a macadamia tree, so it's a nut tree. I've always wanted a nut tree because they're delicious, and macadamias produce kilograms of nuts per year, more than I could probably even eat. So this one will grow to 20 meters tall again, but I will prune it to the same size as a mango. So just come around the back so we don't squash any little plants. This one here, as you can see, it's just booming with new growth, is a almond nut. So I've got a macadamia and an almond, so together I can make macadamia and almond with a bit of cocoa powder, butter. Over the back here, I nearly stepped on it, I have another one of the leptospermums that I grew. This is another similar species to the leptospermum, but more of a shrub than a tree slash bush. And so I've got one there, one here, one here, one down here, and one over here. So as you're walking through to the backyard, you'll just get a line of beautiful fragrance as you're walking through in summertime. And these will grow to a few meters tall. So in 10 years time, this garden might not look like much now, but 10 years time, it'll be an absolute forest. You will not be able to walk between the trees. It'll be so densely packed. So now I'll show you through to the backyard. So this is the entranceway through to the backyard. So as you can see up above, I've got some trellis and some vines. So that's a passion fruit vine. And last year in summer, I planted the fruit in July, I think it was. By December, I was getting 4 passion fruit a day off it. And that went all the way through to March, I must have got like 200 or 300 passion fruit off it. So I call this Passion Fruit Parade. So coming through, this is a 5,000 litre water tank. The very first one that I put in, it's plumbed off about half of the house. So 5,000 litres to half the house is a little bit undersized. I would have liked a 7,000 litre tank here, but the 7,000 is a little bit too tall and I didn't get that fall from the roof to here. So I settled with 5,000, but yeah, it's always full. Never, other than a drought, if you get rain, you can empty it within 10 minutes, it'll be full again. So walking this way, oh, as you can see, we've got a passion fruit flower right there, ready for pollination. They're pollinated mainly by ladybugs and ants. As soon as I put this plant in, like the ladybug population in this area just like quadrupled. It was crazy. They were everywhere. And the ladybugs eat aphids with permaculture, a well-rounded ecosystem, so one thing attacks another and it's all balanced. So the passion fruits grow up a trellis and across the trellis on above the water tank, which shades the water tank, keeps it cool, and gives you a nice little seating area at the back if you want to have some lunch or something back there. But so we've got two passion fruit vines, one's going this way, one's going to the left, and underneath I have a patch of strawberries. Hardly a patch, more like an acreage of strawberries. So this whole garden bed here, it used to be about this high and treated pine retaining wall, and it had a little bit of an incline up to the edge of the fence, and I didn't really like that look. I wanted a nice concrete retaining wall, like pressed concrete block retaining wall, something nice to look at. So this was one of the first things I put in with the water tank and the apple tree out the front. It was a lot of hard work digging. There's probably about a 150 metre slab of concrete underneath the bottom retaining wall blocks just to keep it all steady so it's not going anywhere. And then I built it in and around and put the water tank in. So the strawberries here, they've produced unbelievably last year. They're great as a ground cover because they spread really fast and they just keep all the moisture in, so the passion fruit's got maximum moisture to grow. So great ground cover and keeps the weeds out and produces strawberries. So over here, this is the original tree. So I was going to pull it out until I realized it was a native, and it's I think I call it a Christmas bush, but you can see up here it's just starting to come into flower. These little buds will turn into flowers and it will be covered in bees in about late November, early December. It's got the same smell as the Leptospermum. It's just like a lemony, I'm not sure exactly how to describe it. It's got a lemony fragrance to it. Yeah, this is one of my favorite trees in the backyard. So I've let those strawberries spill over into the lower section, and they're currently taking over the weeds because there was lots of weeds over the back here. So I'm just letting them go wild. As you can see, there's flowers coming out and they're starting to flower. I've recently watered them with some chicken poo mixed with water just to give them a bit of boost and nutrients for summer. So this one here is a dwarf mandarin. It should only grow to 1.5 meters tall and hopefully fill in this gap here. The one behind it is a native Australian covered in spikes, and it is called a finger lime. It produces a fruit about the size of your finger, about as round as your thumb, and it's got like segmented like a mandarin or an orange along its length, but it's got little nodules like caviar in it. So if you Google it, it's a pretty cool looking fruit. These grow to about 6 meters tall, and I'm not going to let it grow that tall, but hopefully I can let it fill up this space and get delicious finger limes off it. So moving on to this side, my aim in this yard was to maximize every single surface possible. So I've grown a passion fruit up and across. It's growing across a water tank, which is on a concrete slab, so nothing's going to grow there anyway. So if you can grow something up and across it, you're making the most of the space. So I've done the same here. I've got the patio concrete here. I've put like a little garden bed in, and I'm trying to grow up and across. So currently I've got only 2 plants in here at the moment. I'm going to get 2 more. So these are kiwi berries. It's a kiwi, a grape-sized kiwi fruit that tastes like a kiwi fruit apparently. I'm yet to taste it, but next to it I'm going to plant here and over here 2 grapevines. So these grapevines, the kiwi berries will grow up and in, and the grapevines will go up and to the left and right. So I'll train one grapevine up and over here, and then along that, and then along here. So up and across where the water tank flows in, and down here there'll be grapevine and grapes hanging, so you can just go and pick a grape straight off it. And on this other side, I'll grow the grapevine up, across, and underneath the awning here, all the way along, tying it with bits of string underneath the eaves, so you can just pick grapes from here. So over here we've got the shed, basic garden shed. We've got 4 compost bins at the moment. I like to call this compost corner. And we've got the seed raising area with shade cloth, so you get just the right amount of sun come through. And I've got all my seedlings just recently planted only 2 days ago to go into the vegetable gardens that I'll show in a minute, that I've only recently completed. This one here is another one of the roses cuttings that I'm trying to grow again. So hopefully that will turn into a full-size rose bush one day. This little box here may not look like much, but it is a beehive of stingless bees. So if you come up close, you can see what they look like. Similar to flies, but not as annoying, nowhere near as annoying as a fly. They're stingless, so you can literally just pick them up and they won't hurt you. And they produce honey. So not as much as a normal European honeybee, but they're mainly used as pollinators. So I live very close to the bush. I'm within 50 meters of a small little bit of bush and about 800 meters away from a national park. So they're well within flying distance of any tree that they could dream of. So over here, this is another one of my most prized possessions. This is a Wallamai pine, one of the rarest trees in the world. There's only about 150 of them in the wild that were native in the wild. They've grown another grove a little bit further down from the native grove just to save the population as well, but I'm trying to do the same in my backyard. In about 13 years time they will go to fruit, where you can get the pine cones and start growing your own, which is what I plan on doing. I'm not sure if it will in a pot, but at least I've got one here, and it's pretty cool. It looks like a dinosaur, it's so ancient, so it's pretty cool. And they're considered the Australian Christmas tree. So over the back I have a worm farm that I'm not using at the moment, but I eventually will use again. So in here this is a greenhouse, and in here is another one of the tropical fruits. I'll unzip it to show you. It is very hot in here, it's a sauna. It might steam the camera up, but so this one, it's not looking too great at the moment, but because I've been neglecting it. But this is called a Soursop. So this is like a lemon sorbet as well, but it's like a giant fruit. Apparently it's delicious. So fingers crossed it grows in this climate. So in summer, when I can take this greenhouse down, I'm probably going to start building a chicken coop in the corner that goes behind the garden shed, and I'll use those chickens to turn over the soil and recondition the soil every time I'm changing crops for each season for each of the garden beds. So I'll show you them now. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 garden beds, and the L-shaped one is the same as one of these smaller ones, except just in an L shape. The 2 middle ones and the 2 end ones have irrigation. 2 middle ones are irrigated by this hose here, and the 2 end ones are irrigated by this hose here. So all I have to do is go from the water tank over to here with the hose, plug it in, turn it on, walk away. This one here isn't irrigated. I'll just be watering it by hand. It's a little bit harder, but it gives me something to do in the backyard. I'm getting covered in bees here. So I'll talk about these now. So these garden beds are about 1.7 wide on the inside and 2.2 long. Easiest method of making garden bed is besser blocks. Just stick them on the ground and fill it full of dirt. So I've recently conditioned it with chicken poo and cow poo, turned it over, introduced some worms, so hopefully those worms start to break down and do their magic. So I'll walk you over this way. These 2 containers here underneath the clothesline will hopefully one day soon be potato beds. So once again, this yard isn't giant, so I can only make the most of the space that I've got. So it's not a huge potato bed, but hopefully it'll produce enough. This is the first bed that's irrigated. It is about, I think it's 2.1 long and 2.3 long, 2.1 wide and 2.3 long. So it's a bit bigger than the smaller one there. It's just 1 block longer. So over here we have some blueberry bushes. I've actually got 12 of them. I like to call this Blueberry Boulevard. I've got a few different species. I've got Blueberry Burst, Blueberry Kiss, and I can't remember what the name of the other one is, but as you can see, I've got some blueberries coming through. That one's a little bit underripe, but they're still delicious. They grow to about 1.2 meters tall. It'll shade the sunroom from overheating in summer, and they love full sun. They do really well in pots, and they produce delicious blueberries. So hopefully when they're all at full size in a few years' time, I'll be getting enough to sustain me for the entire summer. So moving forward, I've got these garden beds here. There's about 40 square meters of garden bed total in this yard. Between 30 and 40, I can't remember the exact number, but if it's 2.1 long, 2.1 wide, 2.2 long, you do the math. So I might put it on the screen. Actually, I will put it on the screen just to let you know the exact size. Once I finish, I'll calculate it. So over back here, underneath the beautiful gum tree, we have some native bushes, basically just a spreading shrub. So they're supposed to flower all year round, so I've just wanted something to incorporate more native trees into the yard for the bees to feast on. Underneath these Hessian sacks, I've got some seedlings that I've just planted. Direct sow seeds, so the ones in the pots are like capsicum, tomatoes, celery, things that you plant in a pot to transplant, and the ones here, things like the beans, carrots, beetroots, silver beet, all those type of ones that you direct bury. So I water this every day to keep the seeds moist until they start to germinate. Then I'll take the Hessian bags off and fill it with hay around the bed just to keep the moisture in, and then fingers crossed I've got plenty of carrots and strawberries, carrots and silver beet and beetroots. Last year, when I finished the very first garden, I wanted to make the most of it, so I started planting in it straight away. I just threw the carrot seeds on the ground and walked away, and I got about nearly 2 kilos of carrots out of a small area this wide and that long. So I've got carrots in this row and in the corner there, so that in a proper spacing should get me about like 4 kilos of carrots just out of this small area here. So yeah, the other day I had some carrots that I'd left in the ground since last summer, and I got enough that fed me for the entire week, and they'd been there for 6 months prior. So carrots, silver beet, beetroot, indestructible, easiest thing to grow in a garden. Just chuck it in the ground and walk away. Over here we have a nice little seating area slash hangout area. Under this is a bath, which in the winter time you can use a fire pit here and have a wood-fired bath whilst looking at the stars at night. It's the best. So the final garden bed over here. Over here we have a grey water recycling. So the first bath is just a filtration. The second bath is a reed bed, which does secondary filtering, and then the third bath is a like a wetland type bath. So this is continuously powered whenever it's got sun by a solar panel over in the corner, just so it pumps the water through the reed bed and then back into the bottom bath. So the laundry is through that door, so I take all the laundry water and hand bucket it into the top bed, and that filters out all my laundry, and it never really overflows because it always evaporates faster than it can fill up. So it's a great way of saving that little bit of water. Down the side of the house is another example of how I've crammed as much as I can into a small space. So I've got 2 500 litre water tanks and 1 2,000 litre water tank. So they come off this side of the house up here, which is another about the same size as the 5,000. So I've got 3,000 litres here, so these overflow really quick, but that just goes into the original downpipe just here. So the 2,000 collects all the water, and then that flows out of the overflow for the 2,000 into each of these 500s, and then those 500s overflow into the stormwater. And the 2,000 litre water tank is this tap here, and the 2 500s are in series, and they are tapped into there. So I normally use the 2,000 litre water tank first. So if that gets too low, I can just start using the 500s. But my aim is, if a 5,000 litre water tank gets too low because I'm using it to irrigate the garden, like for vegetables, I can plug a hose into here and plug a hose into the outlet of a 5,000, open both valves. The 2,000 litres taller, and it will drain into the 5,000 and equalise the water level in that. So I've got a little bit more water to use through the pump to irrigate the garden, rather than doing it by hand. So over there is my bedroom window, but I've got a vine growing up. So once again, maximising the space. So shading my window and my bedroom from the afternoon sun, but also providing fruit. So I'm yet to get fruit off it. It is a silverberry, similar to a blackberry. I'm yet to get fruit off it, but hopefully, fingers crossed, this summer I get some fruit. There is new growth on this, as you can see, so hopefully I get some fruit off it. Okay. One last plant that I nearly forgot is this black sapote. It is apparently called the chocolate fruit. Not because it tastes like chocolate, but because it looks like chocolate on the inside. So I bought it because I thought it tasted like chocolate, and then I was doing some Googling and was disappointed. So it's staying in the pot. So hopefully I can give this away to someone and they can get some nice fruit out of it. Over here I've got a white mulberry. This is a full-size mulberry, but I'm sticking it in the pot. I'm not too concerned about growing it. Like, I don't care if I lose it, but it's another tree that I can keep growing, so I'll just leave it where it is. So this is the rose cutting that I took from the red rose bush out the front and grew from cutting. It's about a year old now, so it's done some good growth in that time, and it's looking pretty healthy. It's got some new growth on it, so because that rose is so nice and I love the smell of it, my aim is to produce as many cuttings as I can from that. So there's one here. I had a failed one on this one, but eventually the one that I've explained about underneath compost corner, I'll hopefully put in here and have a similar rose bush. Well, that's it. That's the entire garden. I hope you liked the video. If there's anything else you would like to know about this, if you would like me to go into more detail about my design plan or anything like that, just let me know in the comments. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is my friend Robert. He was the one filming. Look at him. How sexy is he? Bum, 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 bum. Woo! Let's do like a mad pan, like.